So I rise today to discuss the Defence Annual Report 2022-23 and the subsequent committee inquiry. The report included 5 key themes, with the first theme focusing on Australia's assistance to Ukraine. And it's important to note that this month, on the 24th of February, is the 3-year anniversary of Russia's unlawful and brutal invasion of Ukraine. For 1,078 days, Ukraine has stood resilient and has pushed back in defence of their sovereignty and global democracy. And as a democratic nation who always stands up with other nations who face a threat to their very being, an existential threat, we have always stood up and supported them and supported democracy. But I'm afraid that Australia, like many other nations, are doing just enough so that the Ukraine doesn't lose, but it doesn't win the war. So the 5 recommendations from the report on Australians' assistance to Ukraine are this. The first recommendation was that the Australian government continue providing military assistance to Ukraine while exploring additional opportunities to encourage and support Australian industry and institutions to further contribute to the support effort. Recommendation 2 is Defence publishes a statement on its internal policy approach to Ukraine. 3. The Australian government established a whole-of-government mechanism, a one-stop shop, potentially within the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet. 4. The Australian government review any legislation, regulations or policies that govern decisions around the placement of diplomatic personnel in high-risk locations. And 5th, the Australian government reopen, finally, the Australian Embassy in Ukraine with a permanent military attaché alongside it as soon as possible. So the first thing I would do is to call on this government to provide a report back to this place on the progress and the timeline for each of those 5 recommendations. But this ongoing war of aggression is a stark reminder of how fragile democracies can be and how vital it is for Australia to do all it can to help others fight its wars. Because if we were in their shoes, we would absolutely want and expect other nations to help us defeat tyranny. Late last year, I hosted a briefing with His Excellency, the Ambassador of Ukraine, and Dr. Yuri Sak, an advisor to Ukraine's Ministry for Strategic Industries. I did that as a co-chair of the Parliamentary Friendship Group of Ukraine. They highlighted the urgent need for further support to fight back against Russia. Australia ranks 35th out of 41. How pathetic is that? We are 35th out of 41 donors on the German Kiel Institute Ukraine Support Index, which ranks the aid given by donors to Ukraine. Now, this is a sad indictment on this government, because not only are we 35th out of 41 donors, but the material that has been provided to Ukraine has that whiff of being the old junk out of the cupboard that we no longer want, and is certainly not what Ukraine has consistently said to us that they need. Now, one of the issues and one of the things that the Ukraine government and also the ambassador here has said consistently for over 12 months, in fact nearly 18 months, the main assistance that they now want from Australia is to help them with their communications, which is a huge issue. 25% of Ukrainian fixed networks have been damaged, and over 4,300 base mobile connection stations have either been destroyed or damaged. Now, this is something not only that Australia can contribute to, which will make a huge impact on Ukraine, not only on the battlefront, but also in towns that have been cut off, not just now, but also for reconstruction. Now, the system that the Ukraine government has requested on more than one occasion from Australia is actually an Australian product. It's called the they need 50 of the Scitech Nexus 16 systems, which are manufactured in Western Australia. These systems are important not only for communications on the battlefield, but for the recovery of communities back to properly functioning societies. So we must consider, and I would urge the government to consider this request, and with the additional funding that has been announced, is to back in Australian industries to provide Ukraine with what they have asked.